Hello everyone, I'm Jen Houston from the Artsy Fartsy Gallery here in Canada. I had a whole bunch of people asking, how did you do that no line watercolor stamping technique? And so I thought I would do a video dedicated just to that. Let me show you what I made. So yesterday I was playing around with this a little bit, and so this is what I had. All right, so yesterday my first one was this one. I chose to do some blue colors, calm and light. It's kind of my style. So it looks like watercolor painting. You look like a pro. And yet I didn't use any watercolors. I used ink and a few other tools that I'm going to show you what I used. And then last night at Coffee and Cards, I showed how to make this one. Isn't that nice? Oh, I just love it. So I hope you like it too, and I'm going to show you how this works. So the stamp set that we're using to get this image is from Stampin' Up. It's called Country Home, and so of course it's got all sorts of lovely little stamps that, you know, are kind of like fall themed. However, it could be, you know, like these little cotton, they could be used in the spring, or these leaves and whatnot could be used for Christmas. So it's very versatile, and I love this saying, you are the happy to my day. Can you imagine giving a card to somebody and, you know, them or you receiving that, and you are the happy to my day? Can you imagine the smile it would put on your face? I think that's so beautiful. So that is the stamp set we're using. We are also going to use some tools. This is a watercolor or an aqua painter. So you fill up the barrel with water, and it's kind of like a paintbrush. Just, you know, paint away, and water comes out, and depending on how hard you squeeze the barrel is how much water is going to come out. So that's one of the tools we're going to use today. Another one is the blender pen. And so I found that the blender pen kind of allows you to get a lot more detail on your image. So that kind of comes at the end when you're kind of adding a little finishing touches. So that we will be using. I also have, pardon me, I've got a cold and I'm still a little phlegmy here. I've got this Stampin' Up heat tool, and now if you don't have one, you're more than welcome to use just a hair dryer. Will work for this technique. We need to dry lots in between all of the steps, and that's kind of one of the things that makes this successful. I'm just going to grab a little drink of tea. All right, let's get rolling. So I do have a piece of watercolor paper because this is definitely going to get wet. And so I found that with just plain paper, it balls a little bit. Once it gets a little wetter, it starts warping, and you kind of want to avoid some of those things that might be a little bit of a hassle. The next step is to use Sahara sand. It's quite a light tan color. It's an ink from Stampin' Up. And what we're going to do here, I'm going to use this little pitcher. And what we do, just to make it really super light, is we're going to stamp off first once on a piece of paper, and then we're going to stamp onto our watercolor paper. And I'm just using a foam mat underneath. I find that the foam mat allows you to kind of press, and it gets into more little divots than just stamping kind of onto the table. So as you can see, it's super, super light. And that's what you want, because you don't want to see all those dark lines showing through. Pardon me. You want it to look like you just painted it right onto your paper. Now the next part is the flowers. So I'm inking that up. And once again, I'm going to stamp off onto the paper once, and then onto my watercolor paper. just very, very faint, like I mentioned. All right, so now to get coloring. I think I'm going to start with the vase, or the pitcher, and the color I'm going to use is gray granite. So it's just ink, stamp ink. And what I do, because I don't want to get water all over the ink pad, is I squish. I don't know if you can see what I'm doing here. I'm just squeezing there, and it puts ink onto the top level, kind of the top of the container. And so this is what we're going to work with right now. I'm just going to use the aqua painter, and I'm just going to squeeze a little bit to get some water going. I don't want a whole bunch, but you just want it to be wet for sure. And I'm going to add a little color. This stage, it's better to start off lighter than to be super dark, because you can always add color on top, but you can't take color away once it's on the paper. So just have that in mind. So I'm just going to kind of lay a foundation color down onto this picture here. Now wherever you put your water is going to be where the paint kind of stays. So if you even outline the picture first, and then all the paint will stay within that. Now I'm going to go back here and grab a little more color, because of course that's quite faint. And kind of decide, you know, just kind of do some daubs of color where I think maybe the darker parts would be. Okay, and that's all I'm going to do for this right now. Before I go on, I am going to dry it, and like I said, this is kind of the trick to this. So once you see the shine go away, it's generally dry. There we go. There's our kind of our first step. Now I do want to add a little extra dimension to it, so I'm going to go back now. Same spot. However, I'm going to add a little bit more water where I want it to be a little bit darker. Actually, I'm just going to color in the whole thing again. Okay, I want it a little darker underneath and along the one side, kind of to give it a shadow look. And watercolor is very loose and very not as precise as other kind of coloring or painting techniques. So it's going to be kind of loose and whimsy. Now, while I have the gray granite out, I'm actually going to close this again and get a little more ink onto the top of the ink pad. And I'm going to come with my blender pen while I have this open, and I'm going to do the handle. If you can do it all in one swoop, you won't see the little line where it connects. Just a little hint for you. And I often like to have the stamp pad kind of close by, because it was such a light image. Sometimes you don't pick up kind of the little details of what was stamped onto the paper. So then you can kind of see, oh, where should I come back with some darker shadow lines? Or where were those little kind of rusted spots? and you can come back and add those in. So as you can see, the blender pen comes on much darker than the aqua painter, so that's just something to keep in mind. There. All right, I think I'm happy with that. So to get rid of the color on the blender pen, you just color onto your paper and it goes away. Magic. All right, our next spot I think I'm going to actually I'm going to dry this just in case. Pardon me. All right, so I think what I'm going to do next is the leaves, and I'm going to use Granny Apple Green. I'm going to give this one a try. Oh, see, I haven't even squished it yet, so here we go. Give it a little squish. Oh, didn't get it. Have to press a little harder. All right, so make sure you don't, pardon me, don't have any brown residue from before, gray granite residue. So now I'm just going to kind of wet a leaf ever so slightly and add a little color to it. Okay, and then I'm going to find another leaf that's not right beside where I just did and kind of color that one in. All right, and so I'm gonna add a little water here. Just give it a little squeeze. Oh, that might be too much. So if you do get too much water, you can use a Kleenex. I'm just gonna grab one. And just touch it, and it sops it right back up. I'm gonna just actually wipe this off a little bit onto the Kleenex. There, that's better. And just drop in some paint. So it's not going to look very detailed right now, and that's okay. But as you can see, I'm leaving, or maybe you can't see, I'm leaving leaves in between because you need to dry them and then you can go back and put in all the other leaves. If you try to do them all at the same time, it's going to be one green mass, which maybe that's the look you're going for. All right, I think that's about, oh, I can go up here. There's some leaves up here. This is a neat, bright color. I like it. All right, I think that's all I can do right at the moment, so I'm going to dry this. Okay, and then I'm going to go and color in some of those other ones that I left behind. Once again, this is just kind of a base layer, right? So there's not going to be any detail showing through on these. It's just, let's get some green down where the leaves would go. And let's see, I can do this one. And I'll do some over here. So I'm going to refer back because I can't tell where the leaves are and where those cotton pieces are. Now, of course, I picked a very fussy picture to paint. There are many other background stamps that are a little less detailed than this one. So just keep that in mind when you want to try this technique. All right, let's fill in the last few. Just going to go in here to kind of color in. And I believe there's a little some here. Okay. All right, I'm gonna dry it. All right, and since I have this color open, I'm gonna use my blender pen to kind of go back now and create a little bit more definition, a little more shadows where the veins would be, maybe on the leaves or the stem parts. This is kind of the part where you add a little more detail. I haven't used this color a whole lot, but I'm really actually liking it. When I heard Granny Apple Green, I was expecting this kind of bright lime green color, but I'm actually impressed. I think it's it's a softer green color than I was expecting. So that's always fun. As I kind of said before, I'm kind of I love my soft colors, not the brights. That's not my thing. I try to branch out every once in a while and give it a try, but it's just not me. All right, we're almost done here. I think that's going to be good for me. All right, and if there's some spots later that, oh, I should have filled that in, whatever, we can always go back. Okay, put that color away. Now I think I'm going to use some Mango Melody. There's little dots there, I don't know if you can see, and since there's such tiny little dots, I'm not even going to use the aqua painter. I'm just going to go right in with the blender pen. Okay. Once again, I'm just kind of laying down the color, and I will go back and add some darker spots where kind of the dot meets the stem. Now I know there's, let's see, nope, there aren't. There are apparently two here. Oh, there's the other little guy. All right. So now I'm going to go back and just kind of where it meets the stem, I'm going to make it just a little bit darker. So this definitely is not a quick card making technique, that's for sure. It does take a lot longer. However, the effects are quite stunning, I think. All right, there's our little berries. Next, I think I'm going to do there's a little flower in here, so I'm going to do it with crushed curry. I'm going to grab my aqua painter, making sure there's no, oh yes, there was green. Make sure there was no green paint on there. And here we go with some yellow. Just coloring it in. All right. Now, while it's still wet, if you want your color to bleed kind of a little bit, then you do go back while it's wet. You don't dry in between, and just dip a little color in. So I kind of want a little dimension with this flower. So I'm going to actually go in with that Mango Melody, kind of in the center a little bit, and it'll bleed a little bit. Okay. And I'm actually going to dry this. Okay. Now I wanted some, I think I'm going to go in with some soft suede, so it's kind of a little, it's kind of an in-between brown color, that's what I kind of call it. And just to make a little more definition on this flower, I'm going to add a little bit, a little lighter. There we go. A little bit of brown to the center. There. Okay. Now these, I guess they're lotus, dried lotus pods. What color should I do those? How about, I'm going to use that soft suede. Just going to get a little bit of water because they're quite big, and kind of just wet the pod and go back with a little bit of color. Like I say, you know, start off light. You can always add more later. And now, since that one is so close to the other one, I'm going to dry in between. Okay, and let's go to the next one here. Can you hear my dog snoring? He's a little Chihuahua. He's a little bit chubby. He's like his mama. All right, and I'm going to dry this. Now I'm going to go back again and just kind of add a little more water and make kind of the bottom piece, part of it, a little darker. And same with this one. I'm not going to be joining up with the last pod, so I know I don't have to worry about it bleeding together. I should have just colored the whole thing in and dropped in. There we go. And if you get too much color, same thing as kind of what we did before. Take your Kleenex and just kind of, you can dab some off. Take it off while it's wet. There. I'm gonna dry. Okay, so now those lotus pods have those little dots all over them. So I'm going to go in with the blender pen and the soft suede and just kind of put some of those dots back. And like I said before, watercolor is very loosey-goosey, so it's not going to be perfect. It's just kind of giving the illusion of what's there. All right. Now while I have this blender pen with the soft suede, I'm going to go and there's some stems that we have here. I'm just going to go and do some light lines while I have this out. Once again, if you aren't sure where those lines go, check your stamped image. Okay. Now those cotton pieces. I think I'm going to use some Sahara sand. And I'm wondering about gray granite. Gray granite we used here. Maybe we'll use a different color. Step it up a little. All right. So the cotton. Ooh boy. Yes, I had lots of brown on here. Let's get rid of some of that so that we can start with our new color. Once again, just get it started by just pressing the barrel. And adding in a little bit of color. Can you see how that stamped image kind of disappears? Now that one's too close to that one, so I want to dry before I tackle that one. The other ones are kind of separated, so then that makes it a little easier. Okay, I have to refer here because this one's a little bit tricky. All right, going to dry. And I will go back and do those ones that I kind of left. So wet up the area, then come back and add a little bit of color. Now I can see already that I missed some stem bits, so we will definitely go back to fix that up later. Okay, now that this is dry, I'm going to go back just with my aqua painter and kind of where I'm looking on my stamp set here, kind of where those little darker pieces were. I'm just going to kind of go in, make them a little bit, it's nowhere near what it was, but really nobody's going to see this stamp set whether you give them the card, right? So they're just going to be wowed by your painting. They're not going to know that it's a little bit different than the stamp set. You could always use the blender pen with this step too. just about done here. Adding this little bit of definition in. Two more. Okay, I think that's good. Now I'm going to go back with that soft suede because I can see I missed some of the stems. Whoop, close the ink pad, and I need the other part here. Okay, just make sure it's not too dark. Once again, you can always go back, but once it's too dark, too bad. It's too hard to fix. Okay, over here. Whoop. It's almost a little funny there. Okay, I think I got everybody else's stem. Oh, these little berries. I'm going to go with these little berries. Otherwise they'll be floating out in the air, attached to nothing. And you know, add some brown in amongst things, just to make it all blend together. There. Nice. Pretty. Okay. So now for the background, actually I'm going to dry this just in case. Okay, for the background, here I'm going to show you what I'm going to actually be putting this onto. I chose gray granite and mango melody kind of as a little matte, and then I've got this galvanized paper, and I've run it through the Big Shot in the tin tile embossing folder, which kind of squished this amazing tin tile pattern onto the paper, which is beautiful. So my plan is to go like this, to assemble it all like that. Now I'm wondering, I might put a little bit of gray as a shadow, but other than that, I don't know if I'm going to color all the way around like I did with my other two cards. All right, so let's see. I'm going to get some, now it got me thinking. I wonder if I'm going to use some green. I like this granny apple green apparently. Okay, I'm going to make sure I got some water happening here. And I'm just going to kind of go underneath, put a little blob. Light, light, light. Add in some color. See how faint that is? Like I say, you can always go back. Now I'm going to be brave. I may end up coloring this. I think I'm going to. I'm liking it. May end up changing that matte color to granny apple green. Gotta love when you change plans part way through here. We'll see. I'm just kind of putting water where the background will be so that it can kind of merge together. Ooh, I've got lots of green on here. Just kind of smoosh it around. And you want to get close enough to the stamped images, but you don't want to re-wet the other parts, otherwise it's going to blend and bleed. Get this a little wetter. Somebody, pardon me, that was asking about this technique was mentioning, wow, you could put this in a frame. Hello, oh sorry ladies, hi Amber Marie and Linda, nice to see you. Thanks for watching. It's such a beautiful technique. It's so subtle and makes you look like a fancy painter. But I will say, like I said kind of before, it's not a fast card technique. So, you know, whoever you give this card to, you're gonna love. It's going to be a very special person. Okay, I'm just going to add a little more green in here. The fun with this watercolor is that it kind of, there's lighter pieces, there's darker pieces, it's kind of all mixed, which is kind of what makes watercolor fun. Okay, I'm going to go, probably shouldn't have done that because we don't want to get lines. I'm going to dry this. Then we can go back a little bit. So as you can see, yes, I'm using watercolor paper because of all the water that I've put on this paper. It would just ball up a normal piece of paper, or it would really warp regular cardstock paper. So it's worth the investment to get some watercolor paper for this technique. Okay, I'm going to go back and just make this a little darker. Over there. And I'm going to dry it. I actually think that shadow needs a little bit of gray granite, just to kind of darken it just a tad. I'm gonna get rid of that green. And in we come with a little bit of dark. Dry it. I'm feeling like I need a little bit more definition with the green in amongst the flowers. So I'm going to go back and kind of add a little bit more intensity, especially in the center where there's a big bundle of flowers. So of course it's going to be darker in there because there's not as much light. So you kind of want to outline some of these pieces a little better. I'm almost losing the definition here of the leaf because I've gone back with the same color. Shoot. So I'm going to get my blender pen later and come make those veins and whatnot a little bit darker. There. I like that. Just a little outline-ish. Okay, I'm going to dry this because I don't want anything running where I don't want it to be running. I know I've said that so many times. But it truly is the key to doing this technique, drying after every step. We'll make this, there, that's better. Just add a little bit of definition to that leaf there. There. All right. I think I'm happy with it. So let's assemble and let's see what it looks like with that mango melody. If it's not happening, then we will switch to Granny Apple Green. I think I'm going to cut a piece of Granny Apple Green and see what it looks like. Okay, so let's see what size we did here. Nothing like doing things on the fly, right? I did the measurement at, let's see, 3 3/4 by 5. Okay, let's give this a whirl. Just gonna put this down on the floor for a minute. See how this works. Try mango again. Decisions, decisions. I almost like the yellow because it makes those flowers pop. But it was good to try. See what Granny Apple Green would look like. So I'm going to get my snail tape. It's kind of like white out. And run the tape along the outsides of the cardstock. And I just put one down the middle for a good measure. And if you can kind of line up one side and one top or bottom, and generally you're going to have a nice straight piece of paper. And let's see, I'm going to put this tin tile on. I'm using the snail. I'm going to put quite a bit of glue on because it is so bumpy. I'm going to make sure it's stuck there well. So line it up with one side and one and the top. Looks good. Now before I stick this down, I do want to put a little hello down. So that because in the stamp set we've got a little hello here, and I'm going to stamp that in, I think, soft suede, a little bit of a brown color, just so it shows up nicely. Okay. Hello. I like hello because you can give it for any kind of occasion. If it's a birthday, it's still good to say hello. And I'm going to use this punch, and I realize it's going to run off, but that's going to be tucked behind. Punch it out. Okay. And then I'm just going to kind of wrap it behind. Okay, just like that. Oh, sheesh. So I put some glue behind. And I'm going to put some glue on this little tail here. Set it where I want it. Good. Okay. Now, because this watercolor paper is so bumpy and the tin tile is so bumpy, what I'm going to use are these dimensionals. They're kind of like little foam pop-up dots, and they are double-sided sticky. So we'll put them all down. I'm going to put one on there just to help hold that. And this is going to be kind of our glue source on how we're going to stick it down. So now you go back and you just peel off the backings. Just a little piece of paper on them all. I find these little papers all over the house. my husband doesn't like it. Okay, we're almost done. Their beautiful watercolor masterpiece. There it is. So, what do you think? It's beautiful. Especially with this tin tile, I think it just makes it so antique and precious looking. So I hope that this has been a neat idea that you can try. Doesn't have to have this exact stamp set. If you have a different stamp set that you have at home, give it a try. Just use a light tan colored ink when you stamp first off, and then away you go with your watercolor or your paintbrushes that you could use, or you can, if you want an aqua painter and you don't have that, feel free to contact me and I can get you in touch with how to get one of these, and give it a try, something different, and you'll look like this, you know, amazing watercolorist. But really, I don't have any skill. It's just trial and error, right? All right, I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll talk to you again.